Greetings and salutations, everybody. I hope that you're having a wonderful evening. Notice got a little support for the local team here in Atlanta. Well, maybe not Atlanta, but it is local in Athens, and that would be the Georgia Bulldogs. So the red is a nice salute to them. They'll be playing the Horned Toads from Texas, so that should be quite interesting. My wife was a double dog. She's actually watching the game right now, and I'm just sort of keeping an eye on it and seeing how it all looks, every so often. But man, I bit the inside of my mouth right here. I think the soup was a little too hot. I made some fish stew. If you've never had it, it's quite darn delicious. I would always suggest not eating it when it's hot. It hurts the mouth. So I hope everybody's doing wonderful tonight. I'm just running a little bit late getting some of this up and running because, I'm silly like that sometimes. So that sort of happens. But it's going to be a beautiful night. I saw that there were some rules the house section had put out there. I'm not going to pull up the video on that because, well, that I think would just be ridiculous. I think a lot of people have probably... let's see. Let's put a poll in here. We'll just put this in there just for the shits and giggles in it. Glad that everybody's coming in, hanging out. Welcome. Man, there's a booger bear. Oh, well, thank you there. It's not just the voice. I'm sorry to hear that your internet is on the blink. That really sucks. I know the feeling. I've had that happen before. Corn porn voice. I like that. Yeah, it's old age. It makes the voice a little smoother sometimes. That, and I've actually got a pretty decent microphone, and was able to tweak it just a little bit to make it sound a little smoother. But like I said, I figured I would just sort of go over some of these new rules that they've got. Some of them are probably going to be completely ridiculous. So we're not going to make it too long and tiresome. So, of course, 118th Congress. We all know who these people are. This is that little Kevin McCarthy. He's the man, I guess. So basically, changes standing rules, initiatives reduce spending, improve accountability. Sure. I don't believe that for a second. Increased threshold for tax rate increases. 2-minute votes. Modifications to calendar Wednesday. Committee authorizations, oversight plans. These are just little subsections. That's cool. It's absolutely fine. Take your time. No rush. You come back and catch up whenever you like. So it doesn't really give anything new or special to this. Just a bunch of the same stuff that they've been doing before. Cost estimates for major legislation to include macroeconomic effects. Great. Ethics reform. Impaneling investigative subcommittee of the committees on ethics. Designation, more accountability, education, and the workforce, which those are helpful to have. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. I don't like it that your internet is lagging. Hopefully it's not me causing it. That would be bad. Some cybersecurity stuff. Not really much of anything. Continuing litigation matters such as language, such language being superfluous. Oh, that's fine. It's fine. You come back whenever you feel like it. It's nothing wrong with that. Record votes, access to the hall of the House, resolutions, separate orders. And these are just things that they're trying to get passed through on the first day. I'm sure that somebody has probably gone through the whole C-SPAN version of this, which probably was just BS, a bunch of protocol. They spend more time with the protocol of introducing the bills than actually handling the bills. Scoring conveyances of federal land, member day hearing requirement, remote appearance of witnesses, deposition authority, approving committee electronic repository, transparency. So they're just basically setting down the rules for the 118th Congress, and these will go for 2 years. If there's a change of house, then they'll change how they handle it. They got committees, commissions, subcommittees, 12 members. Yeah, there's nothing really spectacular or glorious with this. It's all just a bunch of regular business. A bill to amend the Omnibus Crime Control and Safe Streets Act to direct district attorney and prosecutors' offices to report to the Attorney General and for other purposes. Yeah. Not seeing anything spectacular in all of this. It is just a bunch of hooey. They spend probably a good part of the day passing these rules. It gets ridiculous. It's ridiculous watching these fools try to run the actual government. So that's why whenever I was doing this, I figured I would probably try to present something a little more interesting. So I figured, why not show a little bit of my trip to Belize? I thought it was pretty darn interesting. Belize is beautiful. We did some diving, my wife and I, and we spent some time in the jungle. And it was quite a sight. So let's see if we've got window, that right there. So bring this up a little bit bigger. I got how about this? Full screen. Full screen. Why is it acting so weird? Okay. So here we go. As I was saying, got a little bit of jungle. Looks like it could be anywhere in the world. This could be right outside my back door. It's when you start to get a little bit deeper into the jungle, you realize that we're in a completely different country, because where you were at, it was, about 50, 60 degrees, and now it's dropped. The temperature has increased so much. You feel a little bit of the heat of the jungle. I was able to get some pictures of these beautiful, what I thought was some sort of water bird. It was actually just a big buzzard, like almost like a turkey buzzard, and they're pretty big. That one there, if I'm not mistaken, you can see where his wings were just slapping the water, and that's him right there. Just some weird, not even a bird of prey. And you know how the turkey buzzards will be clean shaven on their necks and look a little bit bald. Now this one here is of a nice, pretty water bird. Our guide I think he was still learning a lot of his bird calls. He was quite impressive. A young mind gentleman that was really, really on top of his game as far as being a guide. If you look in some of these, you might be able to see the actual alligator. Yeah, kicking back right there. Crocodile, alligator, I can't remember which one exactly it was. But this basically taking us through this little river. It's a Belize River, and there's like the new Belize River, old Belize River. We would just putter down through there, and I was snapping pictures at all the interesting things I could possibly find. Now this is just a bunch of birds that were lifting off over here. Nothing spectacular to look at. This was a Amish farm in Belize along the riverbanks. I had a few pictures of this, but they didn't. Either the pictures were just too blurry, so I didn't get all of them. And there's some of the actual turkey buzzards up there. So all of what you see here in these mounds, these are actually temples back behind a lot of this, because the land around here is actually quite flat. It doesn't have any real hills in it. Quite flat. This is all just jungle that's overgrown, and mounds, not really big hills. The little dock that we came rolling into this area, they would do natural conservation. The people that brought this in, they donated 2 airboats to them, which you'd see over here on either side. Those 2 airboats were donated to them so they could go out at night across this lagoon. Once you get to the other side over there, it turns into pretty much just nothing but marsh. Sort of freaked the wife out as we're coming up on these mounds, which look like they're about to run aground, and they just plow through it, and next thing you know, you're in these little I don't know what they're called, washes, where it's just winding and twisting and turning. We were looking for the little crocs. Yep, crocodiles. I should have known that. I'm silly. So lamini is what they call the submerged crocodile. This is part of what Belize is done, the dock at Lamani and that the European Union and the government of Belize helped to sort of build this little natural park, which they'll have a couple of cheesy things like this laying around, but it's pretty well maintained for foot traffic. They try to keep it where people can, move about. The national flower is the black orchid, and they've got national animal is the mountain cow tapin. The national tree is the mahogany. The bird is the keel-billed toucan, which I never actually saw a single toucan while I was there. So that's the entrance to this little park, which is Lamanai. Really interesting trees, and this was an uncommon tree to see. Yeah, it's one of those buzzards again. So I found these pieces, they tend to have this weird growth that turns them like a really bright green, and then of course you get your termite infestations where these little boogers just basically tear everything up. And that is, I don't remember. I was told what that was. So this is the entrance into the actual stone village. And I'll show you a picture as we were coming up on this. There's this path that leads around to one side, and it just all of a sudden this pops out right in front of you, and the whole time you're probably no further than 20 feet from where this is. The jungle is just so dense and thick. And then you've got these colors that are just so vibrant. This was a stone that had actually was part of a structure that had either been knocked over time, fell over. If I'm not mistaken, they rolled this one over to get some etchings off of it. All of this has been rebuilt. Some of it was still there, and they were able to make out enough of it, or there would be enough stone left that they could fill in the blanks. As you can see, it's more concrete, not so much stone or stone carving. They filled it in so that it would last a little bit longer and they could show off the natural beauty of this area. And get up, first level of getting up into this temple. And each one of these, I'll explain whenever I get to a different one. So this is one that they were working on, still refinishing. So this would be not uncommon to see walking through this particular area, and this is what you would see as you're walking up, and right on the other side of it would be the actual temple. So this is the high temple. It began in 100 BC and was abandoned in the early post-classic period. Special offerings recovered were jade and shell items which had Olmec characteristics. So each one of these layers is built upon the other, and it started out as a very small building, a home, and whenever the father would die, he would leave it to his son. His son would build the structure on top of it, and the whole process would continue on and on. Not all of them were like that, but most of the houses were like that. Most of them. Just some very interesting areas. And people always thought, oh, this is where they would sacrifice. They would call it the High Temple. And as you can see, some very interesting views as you're coming up on top of this particular temple. But you get up to the top, and there's your view. And on the other side of all of these trees over here, you've got more structures, more buildings. I'll get to some of those in a bit. So this would be the view, not quite to the top, but getting closer. That was our guide hanging out, but you can barely see it. But there were actually hundreds, if not thousands, of butterflies that were flying around this whole temple area. Over here to this area is about where our building was. Hey, how you doing, cool frog? You having a good evening? If you want to, I'll drop you an invite if you want to come in and talk a little bit. I don't mind a bit. Let's see. Come on. It's always difficult whenever you do that. Invite. Oh, do a copy there. Just a second. I'll see if I can get this. I'm about as horrible at this as I could be. There we go. If you want to, it's cool. All right, let me get that back up here. So, as I was saying here, but this always does this to me. Oh, there it is. So this is a marker, basically no different than they would, do some sort of plot. So they place this, and then they place the legal survey for it, so they can take surveys. But yeah, there's more temples off in the distance. And as I rotate around, this is doing a 360. A lot of the risen areas that you see, those would be more temple areas that have, been overgrown with jungles. As you can see, there's a piece out here. That mound is part of, temples. All this area through here. You've got a bunch more. Our guide had said to, look out and see if you could spot any others. And of course, you can from distance. A hell of a zoom on that camera. But this was one of the homes that father would build, one on top of the other. And I think this is the famous ball court that everyone talks about, where they would be sacrificed. Oh, that would be just so horrible to be sacrificed after winning a ball game. But after talking with our wonderful Mayan guide, he said there's a possibility there were some sacrifices, but nothing, on the scale of some other places. This particular temple wasn't really up for that. It was more of a sports game. And this is the monument that was erected. And it, of course, asked our guide what exactly, how did it get in such disrepair? And he explained that the sugar trade came in. Sugar trade pretty much destroyed the whole area. It just got gentrified and everybody moved out, moved on, left their cities, said, see you, bye. Turned it into, overpopulation. They couldn't meet enough supply to keep their people fed. But just more. There's another temple area that we went to, and that's the one right there. So that was part of what was covered up by all of the jungle, the trees that I was showing. Just insane. The size of this area. This is the Jaguar Temple. It's very interesting. And of course, this picture was taken with our guide would use this to get these pictures, and this was a howler monkey that had been kicked out of his pride, I think is what it is. His tribe, pride, his group. They basically had kicked him out for whatever reason. And we were able to see some of the pieces. They had a little shop that we went to that they would have all of these, what do you call them? Different things that they had gathered. Might be, a wheel or something round, or a piece of stone that was etched out that had fallen face down and was protected from the rain and, just life in general. The jungle sort of kept it protected, and they would turn over these stones and you'd have all these beautiful engravings all over them. And most of those engravings would have a story to them, like explaining who lived there, what status they were at. And then, of course, this is part of the area that we'd gone to that was at night we would go out and try to find some crocodiles. And what they would do is they would age them and try to, get a little idea of them. We actually had one that was, literally just 5 or 6 inches long, just a little guy. And, he was all, but he was a baby. And they basically aged him and tossed him back in. And there was basically, we did this at sunset. So just different pictures as the sun's going down. And if you look up in our area, we can see this little guy hanging out up there. And a really, really creepy bat. But he was not alone. He was up there with all of his buddies, and they're all hanging out, looking at us as we're looking at them. Creepy as all get out. But we were explained that Belize has a large variety of different bats. And so the bat experts will come and do internships to learn what they can about the different species of bats in this part of the country. And Belize is really a good place for that. And they would, just have the most amazing groups of people come through. I think we had some Dutch that were in there, which was really cool. They were interesting to listen to. The voice is a little different. But yeah, we did this little cruise and, drank some wine and just sort of watched the sun disappear. And, of course, we'd done a couple other excursions, and I didn't want to inundate all of this with a bunch of, crazy, crazy pictures. But, this would be the regular view that you would get at night. If I'm not mistaken, that right there is a spider web that was sprawled all across um, that area. But just a nice, easy sunset. Belize had some of the most beautiful sunrises and the most beautiful sunsets. And you could catch the sunrise on one side of San Pedro, where we did the second part of our journey. But this is a lagoon, just a big, looks almost like a lake. And you got these little inlets that are pretty much everywhere, taking you into where they would grow all their crops. They would grow maize. And of course, at night, it is completely dark. Little koi pond, well, not koi pond, but just a little pond that they had natural. And you would get this view from going to our the little restaurant, because you don't have any places that they can take you to for a restaurant. You're pretty much there, and if you get drunk enough, they've got a taxi to get you home. So best choice is don't drink too much, or your partner's going to be rolling you back to your bin. But they had quite a few hummingbirds in this area that were just hanging out and zipping around and loving life. It was beautiful just watching those little guys. This is a picture of a guide, and if I'm not mistaken, this is a type of baggage truck where they basically would load our bags up. Drove us through the jungle to get to our airstrip, which was literally this strip of land. That was our airstrip. That little thing right there. That was it. That's all we had. So we got up in the air, and of course you'll see some of the buildings and temples that you can't really see from the ground. Some of the villages, and just how much expanse was across this area. And we did find a couple of more areas where they were just clearing. And of course, we will see another temple here. So that's the Jaguar Temple that we were at. That right there. That was the near the Jaguar Temple, but they were also doing some more excavation of areas around it. But this is a different temple. That's not the Jaguar Temple. That's actually a different one. My bad. This is one of the more popular places here. This was further inland than Lamanai. But this is what San Pedro looks like from the air. We'll get to that here. So, a quick little flight coming out of the jungle. And I would want to say this flight maybe took 20 minutes. 20 minutes at the most. And the water is literally that beautiful. It is so gorgeous. Just amazing. Yeah, there's San Pedro right there. And we were not at this end of it. We were a little bit further up somewhere. Let's see. Yeah, I think where we actually stayed was closer in this area. This is getting out a little bit too far for us. And we did take a golf cart out to this area, but we didn't come all the way down this way. There, these are long drives. We stayed in a little place that was right over in that area, which was quite wonderful and chilling. Very cool here. San Pedro, hooray. And of course, the amount of birds that like to come and hang out. And this is sort of the breakers to keep this as a swim area for the resort goers, so they wouldn't have to. It also will keep a lot of the seaweed down. So they had those stretched out across there just to keep a lot of the seaweed. There was tons and tons of that that would wash in there and it would just bring in jellyfish with it, and that's why they tried to keep a lot of that out. But a lot of these are pictures my wife took of all of the birds that were happy to hang out. That was the view from our room, which was quite awesome. And they would turn on the lights that were rope lights around those trees. But yeah, that would be our view pretty much every night and every morning. And we actually did some diving out past where those waves are breaking. So this little area out here where all those waves are breaking is where it starts to deepen. The rest of this is rather shallow. It's not particularly deep. It's good for, you could swim out to those deep areas if you really wanted to swim, and probably stand up a good amount of the time that you were making that swim. But nighttime would get pretty dark. You don't get all of the light pollution in this area. But we did do some dives. This is one of my wife's buddies that would come around, actually landed on her foot and was kicking back. It's a warbler. But he was there every night. I think he had a nest. It's just glorious to see this. Just as you can see, got boats rolling up on in there. They would come up as close as they could if they didn't put some of those barriers in. But yeah, just watching the booze cruisers out there, because that's what that bigger boat is. Large dive groups. And of course, you get these kind of sunsets. Just the colors were amazing. And if I'm not mistaken, that is no. Those guys actually had some snappers that they had brought in. We thought we were looking for our dive boat because we went out. This guy would come over and hang out every so often. He was more interested in the iguanas, like that. So yes, to the diving. This would have been somewhere on the range of 70 to 80 feet down. It's really hard to get the colors right. The colors that you see on my legs and on my gloves is actually red. And of course, the nice little nurse shark like to come and hang out and visit. And all of what you're seeing is black, but the light colors are red except for the actual watch. It's just because the colors bending. The red is first to go on the spectrum going down. And of course, this is our dive guide, which is just amazing. You'd go and mess with certain fish just to kick them up. And I did the best I could cleaning it up with the filters. It's just so difficult to get the colors right. Yeah. Now, this nurse shark was around us quite a bit, and I don't know if I got a picture of it, but at one point I turned and looked up, and there was probably about 5 or 6 tiger sharks that were swimming around a boat. They weren't coming down to mess with us. They were interested in whatever the boat was doing. But yeah, there's lots of octopus, lots of just really strange little fish coming up through here. And this was, various depths, anywhere between 60 and 80 feet. We did a couple of 2-tank dives. And I won't keep boring you with all of these pictures. Yeah, that's my fat ass. That is weird. Okay. Oh, end of the roll. Well, there you go. So that was Belize with jungle and with a little bit of that nice, sweet, deep ocean dives. I would definitely suggest anybody, if you can make the time, take a little trip to Belize. The people are very nice, they're very friendly, and they will shock you and surprise you in their kindness. San Pedro, you don't have to worry about renting a car because they don't have but maybe 2 or 3, well, maybe 10 cars on the whole island. They don't really do a whole lot of driving because the island's so small and so narrow. It's pretty much just all golf carts. It would be too much of a pain for them to get fuel to come in. Sorry, it was a long day. Excuse my yawns. But it's I would suggest anybody take a nice little trip to Belize. You'll find that it's well worth any sort of trip. Well worth it. And I think our House of Representatives have done some really crappy stuff in who they've bought because that's all it is. But it's crazy. So I don't know if I can pull this up. Let me see. Cool frog. Looks like it is just me. Sorry that I couldn't keep a whole bunch of people here. It's not a bad thing. I appreciate everybody. Thank you very much for W. Daisy Girl Williams for coming in. I understand how difficult it can be, and the internet can be very, 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 very fickle. So I don't fault you for not being able to make it back in. We've got some interesting stuff coming up that I'm going to try to review a little bit later on in the week. My voice is starting to get a little bit hoarse. So I've got a couple of trials that I'm trying to follow a little bit and get some more information on those. Um, I saw that there's a couple of pretty cool stories out there. I just haven't had enough time to actually dig into them, and I don't want to present something that I haven't really got my finger on. I don't know what I'm talking about with it, or at least understand a little bit of what's going on with it. So I don't want to really present those too much until I actually have those down just a little bit better. Man, I guess I really need to stop doing the hard drugs. Just kidding. I don't do hard drugs. Or do I? No, I don't. Pretty positive I don't. But what I can do is I can pull this. No, we're not going to pull that up. That's just a little weird. But anyhow, I would like to thank everybody that was able to make it by, and I know some of you folks will be able to catch up with this later. I would suggest hitting the like and subscribe. Share it, like it, love it. I appreciate everybody that could come in and join me, even if it was for a short period of time. I love doing this, and I just have a absolute great time with it, and would love to have some other folks come in here. And I've spoken with somebody that I don't want to mention right away, but they will be very gracious with their time whenever they're able to make it in, which I think is great. I'll be happy to have them on, and thankful that they could come in, because I find it very interesting. So look forward to that. That could be, a few weeks. I'm not gonna pressure them to do things outside of what they're able to, because I'm just not that way. I want them to feel comfortable coming on here. If anybody else ever has the desire to come on, hang out, maybe chat, I'm absolutely open to have you there, and I'm also hoping to come on your channel anytime. It'd be great to get to know some of you folks. But anyhow, thank you very much. Everybody have a wonderful evening, and I'm hoping that I will see all of you again really shortly. And I hope you enjoyed my short trip down memory lane, looking at pictures of Belize. Have a good night. Thank you.
Exótica.